Hey all, Pixel here, Improbable Garage. We're on the Cyberpunk Cube again, and today we're working on cameras. More specifically, I want to augment the side view mirrors with exterior cameras. There's a bit of footage that you guys never saw because I've tried this once before, but the cameras I had were terrible. In particular, they claimed to be infrared, and instead they actually, when it got night, turned on a bunch of regular LEDs and produced a blinding light from the camera, which meant they weren't really useful if I wanted to drive with other cars. These I haven't experimented with at night, so they may have the same problem, but let's hope that they're a little bit better quality. These specifically state they're infrared, so maybe. But the plan is I've got 2 of these cameras and 2 of these little screens. So I specifically do not recommend the set that I bought because, well, it's trash. It came with this that was supposed to power the whole thing. 1, this is broken, it doesn't produce any power. But 2, the camera unit, you need to then hardwire in. So this is kind of pointless. Like, yeah, great, you can plug the light in, you plug the screen in, but the camera itself needs its entirely separate power source. There's a power wire that runs alongside the long wire that you can splice the camera into, but there's no ground. It's a bad design because you end up, even though you have this thing, you end up having to still hardwire in somewhere along the line. It's stupid. But the pieces of it should work. I've already tested it. That's what this whole mess is. And you can see I've got a ground wire running from a screw there. I've got a power wire running from a random switch over here. So I was able to get it to work, so I know it works. It's just the design is stupid. So let's talk about the setup. So these cameras are probably going to get mounted something like that. I don't know exactly. It's going to depend on exactly where they give me the best results. The nice thing about these, the good thing is they've got good range of motion based on the bracket. Like, the bracket can go all the way back, it can also go up. Like, I can flip this thing completely around if I want to mount it under the mirror or something. It doesn't have any real three-dimensionality in terms of its adjustment, so like something like this would be a problem, but I don't suspect I'm going to want to do that. Or if I do want to do something like that, I'll just heavily modify the bracket. And then the screen is just here for planning purposes. One of 2 things will happen. Either the screen is going to get mounted, you know, there in the pillar basically, or I will modify this piece here to take it there. I suspect I'm not going to do this because I think it would overlap the actual mirror too much, but I can experiment with that later on, though this is most likely going to be, the setup is going to be something like that. These screens do have a little shade on top. I don't know if it's going to be enough, but it should hopefully be. For now, they're going to get just mounted as they are. Later on, when I'm doing more aesthetic stuff on the dash, these will probably get a little bit of modification paint, something, to just make them look a little bit better. But that's basically the design. I have 2 of them, so the same thing is going to happen over there. This is 2 reasons. 1, I just think it'll look cool. It'll fit that aesthetic of the vehicle to have the separate camera and screen showing the blind spot. The other thing is the big bulky mirrors on this I do not like. I want to get rid of them, but I don't want to suffer. Like, if I put a really low profile, like a motorcycle mirror or something on this, I don't want to then not be able to see worth a damn. So this is sort of the solution to that. The screen will become the primary source with the physical mirror as essentially a backup. Because I don't want to remove it, 1, because I don't think it's legal to remove it, but 2, I want to still have it there just in case. You know, if everything goes wrong, whole car shorts out, whatever, I still have a mirror to get, so I can see where I'm going when I'm coasting the side of the road. So that's it. I am going to work on mounting this up and getting it wired in. I've got to find a switched 12 volt to power these off of. And for now, this is going to get basically taped to the car so I can experiment with locations. It's going to probably take a day or 2 of driving around day and night to figure out where I want these, like where they'll work the best. And then once I have that locked in, I can lock in their location. I do wish this had a little bit more adjustability, because this would probably work pretty well if the camera was rotatable, which it clearly is not. Alright, even by my own standards, this is some of the jankiest stuff I've ever produced. So, let me talk you through this disaster. Monitor mounted there, monitor mounted there. Each one is got their power plug with the end for the cigarette lighter cut off. Each one has an extension to the red wire that goes to the back. Those 4 power wires come together here. They go into this red wire, which is hooked into this switch. The 2 grounds from the back, I'll get to that in a minute, are on this wire, which comes forward, connects to the 2 grounds for the 2 lights, and they go to that wire that's jammed in that screw over there. The wiring going back, you got half of it hanging out there, half of it hanging out there. The wiring in the back here, we've got the 2 grounds connecting in the middle to go to that wire forward. The power wire has been looped like this. This is actually the only thing of what this is probably going to stay. And then I've got a light taped to the car here. I got a camera taped to the car there, and I got a camera taped to the car there. The wire taped both to keep it in place and as a second security thing in case this tape pulls off. So, as jank as this is, it's basically fused through 2 different fuses at 2 different cages down there. It has to go through this switch and then this switch before it powers up. So here we go. 1 there, 1 there. These are not the final screen plate. Nothing of this is final. But we can see this one, I'm seeing way too much roof rail, so it's got to get moved out and back. That one, I've got a pretty good view. So let's reposition this one, and then we'll go for a little bit of cleanup and we'll go for a drive. So I don't know how good your view is going to be because I'm supposed to pin into the road, but this one is showing me way too much the side of the road. Ditto over there, that's a little bit better though. I moved both of them forward because the blind spot wasn't visible on either, but they're still not in a useful place. I think I might end up having to mount them upside down under the mirrors just to get them pointed in the right direction. I was hoping to have them on the roof because I was hoping that their fields would overlap. Oh, that guy was doing weird shit. I was hoping that their fields would overlap so that the 2 of them would basically give me the rear view, but the camera angle is too narrow for that. So they never actually show me the same thing in each of them. So yeah, right now neither of them are any good for what I need them to be because they're not showing me my blind spot or behind me. So we're gonna have to do a little bit more tweaking and see if I can improve that. All right, I just tried something. I stuck them like that, and now have these vertical to accommodate that. And I can now see that white truck that is just about perfectly behind me in that one, and I can see it in that one, and I can see it's, you won't be able to see it well, but it's like half covered by the car in that mirror, and it is just visible at the edge of this mirror. So that's actually giving me more or less the same coverage as the factory mirrors are. I would prefer wider rather than taller, but if that location works, that's a possibility. I'm going to try that driving. All right, yeah, this is actually kind of working. They're both obviously jankly positioned, but I can see the left-hand lamp of the car behind me in that one. I can see the right side of the car. I can't see the headlamp because it's too close to me, but I can see it in that one, which is the same as I can see in the mirrors. Everything's a little small, so I think they're going to need to get moved closer to me for this to work. Maybe even mount that one over here somewhere to keep, to compensate for being way so it's not super, super tiny. But yeah, this has possibilities. I really wish I could mount them on the roof, but this may work better. I might be able to mount them on I was just thinking on the pillar over here, but that might look extra strange in the bad way. I just filmed some stuff while I was driving, while I was paying attention to it, because I wanted to see when stuff became visible in them versus when it became visible in the side mirror. So I'll check that footage. There's also a giant yellow bug in the car. Little too many things to do in a manual transmission car right now, but this has definite possibilities. The screen resolution's not great. The quality's kind of sucky. The biggest thing is going to be at night, whether these actually switch over to being infrared and therefore show me anything, or if they end up like the van where the headlights just blow everything out and it's completely useless because all I can see is the glare from the other vehicle's headlights, where the side mirrors are still at least somewhat usable. So I think we will pick this up again with a nighttime test either tonight or tomorrow night. Camera's mounted right there on the outside. It's just taped on, of course. That gives me virtually identical view from the two. I don't have it on this side, and I can't have this one plugged in at the same as that one because all my wires are not long enough, but that has some definite possibilities. And if that works, I can even make a custom mount that rotates it back the way I want it there, because it won't stick out in a way that's a problem. And then later I could always, when I build a custom side mirror, integrate the camera into it, possibly out at the outer edge where it would work even better. So that's got, because the issue is this setup I don't like, because I feel like they're going to get bumped constantly. People are going to, getting in and out of the car, people getting in and out of the other cars are going to, you know, knock them around and change their angle, and then I'm going to have to climb out of the car to fix them, and that's a pain in the ass. Whereas this is, in this general vicinity, is kind of protected. You know, anything that's going to hit this is also going to get whacked into the mirror and stuff, so it has a certain degree of protection by being there, and it's going to give me a very similar perspective to where the mirror is, which is going to limit my blind spot. Well, not limit, it's going to have a similar blind spot to the mirror, that's what I'm trying to say. It's not going to introduce new blind spots. So I kind of like that, but I think that what I would need to do if I was going to mount it here is definitely make a custom bracket that basically, you know, use these two ends but mount them to a bar that isn't quite so far down, and then have that come up with the 90 degree for a bracket, you know, something like that, so that this can be mounted horizontally rather than vertically like it is right now. But yeah, it definitely has some possibilities there. Still need to experiment, like I said before, with nighttime. All right, it's night, but this is blocked in by my partner's car, so I'm just going to do this in the driveway because there's just one relevant thing, which is they do in fact have an infrared setting. That one's less obvious, but they are both in infrared. Actually, you can tell on that one because that flickering light is actually orange in the real world. Yes, you can kind of see it in the mirror. So they do go to infrared, and they are actually infrared, so that's super cool. Also, the camera's showing a little odd, but they're, because it's trying to read the infrared, but they're very faintly red dots. The LED, the infrared LEDs have a very faint little bit of red. So cool, the infrared actually works. It's not just bright white LEDs that turn on and blind other drivers. So spiff. So I think what I'm going to do now is, the next step is going to be to better mount the two screens and wire them in, and make plans for wiring the cameras in and figure out what their final location is, but I can clean up some of this disaster, even if I can't clean up all of it yet. So I was just going to do this, and then I realized I should film it. This is one of the cameras taken apart. I just got to the point where the important step happens, but this is designed to go this way. You can see that's the sensor for the infrared LEDs. I've marked this side of it, I've marked this side of the case, and I've marked the top of the camera. So what I'm going to do, I've already done this on the other one, is loosen the screws that hold this camera and rotate it 90 degrees. This is because This is because I've discovered that the best way to mount these is sideways, but I want that wider rather than taller view because I want to be able to have the wider angle on the screen. So this is the easiest way to accomplish that. I was afraid this was attached to this board, but it's not. It's just attached with 3 out of the 4 screws. You can unscrew this and rotate it in whatever direction it needs to be. The other one, what I did was on the other side, I have it so that, on one side I have it so that this is on one side of up, so that that will not be on, because the way these were originally, that was on the opposite side from the sunshade. So the sunshade was over there. It's obviously not a sunshade in the traditional sense anymore because it's going to be on the side, but still I want it opposite that. And so I have to have them on opposite sides, and they're now going to be side specific to the vehicle. But because I marked, this is where I want top to be, this is where I want top to be, and that's where I want top to be there, I can now take this, unscrew it, screw it back in, and then reassemble this, and I will have a camera that mounts sideways but films horizontally. And the housing and everything won't matter at all because the lens doesn't use any of that to define its size. The only thing I'm going to have to do, obviously, is the sunshade is going to have to be far out enough or possibly removed. For now, I'm leaving it on there, but if it has to go, it has to go. I don't really care. It's just, right now it's just an interesting, extra bit of shape to the whole thing. But that's it. I'm going to put this one together, and then I can work on mounting them. At this point, I'm really just tempted to just tech screw them right into the side of the car. I can always go back and do a better job later, but that'll let me mount them permanently, which will let me run all the other wiring and stuff in a more permanent fashion. So I'll catch up with you once I'm at the next step. All right, I forgot the camera last night, but I drove up to Boston and used these as my mirrors. They worked really well. The only thing that was a little bit weird, one, it just takes a while to get used to how wide the field of vision is. And the fact that stuff you expect to be closer is not. And the other thing with it is the infrared was a little bit confused by cars' headlights. So to be in infrared mode, a car's headlight would hit the little sensor, it would flip to regular mode. The car would drive fast enough that it's not directly throwing light on the sensor, it would flip back to infrared mode. Most of those noticeable, like sometimes you could see color in the thing, sometimes you couldn't, and sometimes the glare in the headlights was a little better or worse, but it wasn't a problem, it was just a little bit of an oddity. So they definitely work, they do the thing I want them to do. So now comes hardwiring them in. I've already actually started tearing stuff out, because the biggest thing, ironically, is I have to figure out where to store these giant bundles of wire, because they come with enough cable to run it to the back, and I'm going to be running it, from there to there. So I think I've already started pulling stuff off. There's a dead space, basically in this area behind where the visor sits up here, so I think I can actually cram it all up in there and run the wires down. That means I'm not adding another huge chunk of wire under the dash, because there's already so much stuff under there, it'll just be a pain. It'll also, if I stuff it down in the obvious spot down here, getting more wires run up will be a problem, because there'll be this giant bundle of wire for them to get caught in. So I think that's my easiest solution, is I'm going to basically, the two ends are going to be down here somewhere, and the rest of it's all going to get run up and just bundle up in here. And then I have to figure out grounds, which aren't a real big issue. I can just put a tech screw in anywhere, or attach them to an existing ground I can find. The other one is power. I need to find a circuit with switched power, because it's not going to be run off of the big Cyberpunk button, and the other fuse box that I added is all for continuous power, and I want these to shut off when the car goes off, and I want them to turn on when the car goes on. So I need to find switched power on the dash, on the stock fuse box, and then I'm also going to add a switch so that if I want them off, I have that option. I'm unlikely to need that, but it just seems sensible to have that option. There seems to be a good idea to not require me to like yank something out of the fuse box if I need them off for whatever reason. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to film any of that because it's going to be really hard to show. Most of it's going to be me cramming my hands in various uncomfortable places. If anything interesting will come up, and then I'll catch you once I've got it at least wired, maybe permanently mounted. Alright, we are almost entirely installed. So this one's mounted to the pillar using the mount that it came with. Just flipped around because it's supposed to stick out over that part, but this way it fits. But it fits better this way. And then all the wiring is, the big bundle of cable is up in here that runs down. It's all wired in here. The 2 grounds are together and screwed there. And then the 3 power wires, just, this thing's wired weirdly. I probably only needed 2 of them, but I wasn't sure, but I just decided to do it. Anyway, the power wires are hooked together and come to a wire that goes down there, around and over here. Same basic thing over there, except that the wires come around over here so that this is mounted here. This is just easier because by the time this screen's over there, it is so tiny that cars in the distance aren't really visible. So this is the sort of solution to that. Eventually this will have a more interesting mount. I'm thinking about doing something that makes it look like a CRT monitor rather than an LED, but that's a future thing. But anyway, mounted there, all secured, wire drops down, wire comes in here. And then right now they're just twisted together because I haven't wanted to get upside down with my head in there. But this green wire comes off of the radio wiring. That's switched power. And what's going to happen is, where did I put it? This, I'm going to take this relay, run that switched power to it to run it off of one of the constant power fuses over there, so that these will actually be powered off of fused power down here, but they'll be run through a relay from the radio. That way the radio wiring is not taking additional load. Shouldn't be an issue, but it's just, this is safer and easier in the end, because the other thing is, since this is going to be beefier, I can add more stuff to it, so I can have more switched things without having to worry about overloading the radio circuit. So right now these are all twisted together at the moment just for testing purposes. And take the key, put it in. There we go. Those boot up. And then if I take the key out, turn the key off, they shut off. So like I said, there's going to be a switch as well that is going to power these. But for the moment, I think I'm just going to sort of quickly wire in a switch and just have it shoved somewhere there. Maybe I'll put the switch back in that was over here that used to be this one, just for the time being until I find a more permanent solution. I can't use any of these switches because they are on this switch, so that wouldn't work. These are already all wired in, and I don't have another convenient switch box. There will be switches here, but I don't think I want to run the wiring all up there if I can avoid it. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff up here, including other switch plates, so that's going to eventually probably be the solution. But yeah, I'm really happy with that. I think I might cut it there because I think I'm done for today, and the rest of it's just going to be putting a little bit of additional wiring in. Now I have mirrors, and we now get to do the really satisfying thing of just that's going to be it for now. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.